on the Red V podcast. The Dragons locking horns with the New Zealand Warriors on Friday night, and probably the sternest test the Dragons have had this season, Kurt. I wouldn't say they've had a soft draw to start the season, but they haven't really played any true contenders, and that's no slight on the Cowboys. But I think the Dolphins and Cowboys could be sides pottering around the bottom half of the eight, or fighting for a spot in the playoffs later in the season. But as you kind of mentioned at the top of the program, I think the Warriors are a side that are knocking on the door of, again, potentially going deep into the finals. They kind of got themselves out of jail late on against Manly. They've put in some good performances. I don't know if I would necessarily label them inconsistent, but I think there's been matches where the Warriors have kind of flowed in and flowed out, and I think because they've got a lot of ability all over the park, they can do that and still kind of get away with the victory, or get something out of the game like they did against Manly. For me as a Dragons fan, I feel confident after the win against the Tigers, but I think I'm also a realist in knowing that I think it's going to take something pretty special on Friday night to beat the Warriors.
Yeah, huge step up for the Dragons this weekend. The quicker Shane Flanagan can get Sunday's win out of their heads, the easier it will be to focus on the job that they have against the Warriors. I know they're only 7th, but I don't think there's another side in the NRL right now as confident and at ease in their own skins than the Warriors. They are just a really well-kept football team that just know that they all know their jobs. I almost think at times they are playing within themselves and trying to find a happy median between the Warriors of old and that out and out just wanting to play footy and score points and entertain everyone, and realising I think they're maturing as a football team and as individual players that, hang on a second, if we want this squad to go further than we did last year, it can't just be on emotion and momentum, which is fair enough last year with everything that happened with COVID and the whole country of New Zealand behind them. I think they're going to another level from what I've seen so far, that they are a very mature team that understands that we don't have to score on this play, because if we take one more, we can score on the next play. And they do it down the park too. It's not setting up, and while they do that and put a lot of pressure on teams. Last week against Manly, they had no right to come back and get that draw. They scored a couple of times really late, brought the crowd back into it again. There's just something about them that they're a lot more mature than they were last year. I'm not saying that the Dragons aren't ready for them, but if they want to take that step, and we keep saying that it's going to be up and down all year for the Dragons, and the concentration might be off here and there, but this is a challenge for them after a big win, and it was a big win because it was a huge day for West Tigers at Campbelltown. Apparently a new era, which changed nothing for them, but for the Dragons, that they stopped that. They stopped it in its tracks. So I just want to see them, even next week, if they get blown off the park and it's not their day, that's fine. But this week against the Warriors, after what they achieved against West Tigers at Campbelltown, just understand that, you're playing against a really good football team, but acknowledge that and take the challenge. It's very interesting to see what Dragon side shows up this Friday. I would assume, even though it's a 6 p.m. game, there should be a few people there.
I think, I'm speaking to a few people, and I think both the grandstands are pretty much virtually sold out. So, I think there could be a crowd in excess of 15,000 down there, Kurt.
That's amazing. That's great. So, look, I think the players understand there's a bit of momentum, maybe not necessarily building, but I think the players are now aware that the fans are kind of understand who they are this year, but still expect to play some good football and give the fans something to build on. But I think for the players personally, I hope the conversation after the game on Sunday was, let's get back on the bus, or the boys going back to Sydney, or the boys going back to Wollongong. See you tomorrow. We'll have a swim and get sorted for video, because this is a big weekend for the Dragons. This is their biggest test, easily. And like I said before, I think the Warriors are going to climb this ladder slowly up the year, but to the point where they'll be first or second at the end of the season. That's how good the Warriors are, I think.
Yeah, I think it can be a really good gauge of where the Dragons are at the moment, and where Shane Flanagan has this football side at. I think what Kurt mentioned before is probably true. I think it's going to be one of those inconsistent years where you have a week like we've had where we beat the Tigers, or a week where you spring an upset against the Manly, and it may be followed by games like the Cowboys where you get blown off the park and the defence just isn't able to compete. And this may be one of those games, but like I know I feel a lot more confident as a fan going into a game like this than I did under Anthony Griffin, or even kind of the later tenure of Paul McGregor. It's going to take something pretty special, but I think when you look across the side and you look at Lomax and Hunt and some of those players that have been involved in some of the exciting players throughout the year, then you kind of feel a bit more confident about where the Dragons kind of sit. I don't want to spend too much time on like previewing it, Kurt, because sometimes I feel like we go around in circles a little bit. But in your humble opinion, how do you beat the Warriors? What's when Shane Flanagan's looking at whether they did video work today or whether they're doing it tomorrow? What is he looking at? What is he focusing on? Whether it be a particular player or players or play or the style that the Warriors play. How do you beat them? What is Flanagan going to be looking at? What's he going to be trying to do this week against the big boys from New Zealand?
I kind of just touched on then. I want to see the Dragons really do their homework, because they have to. It's like some weeks and most weeks it's going to be all about inward. What can we do to get better than from the week before? What are the 1% plays that we need to do to keep ourselves in the game? I challenge the Dragons this week to go a little bit further than that and really hone in on the Warriors. And the Warriors, I mean, it's not one thing. It's their big forwards. It's the way Egan is controlling ruck tempo and the angles that they're in traffic and going through the ruck. Johnson on the back of that, the fullback, and then a bloke called Tuivasa-Sheck in the centres. They're big wingers. I think right now the Warriors are the best coach side in the NRL as well.
I agree.
So I think for the Dragons, I want to see them do their homework. I think, a lot of the time we can give them a pass mark and say, it's going to be a tough season and all the rest of it. This is what I'd like to see this be a little mini challenge for the Dragons. And like I said, do their homework. There's going to be things in this game that I hope the Dragons understand, or they're prepared that the Warriors are going to do a few things in this game that they're not going to be able to stop. But I want them to keep their heads up and say, you know what, too good. But it's the things the Dragons can also stop as well. And the things they can do personally, the poor defensive reads, the unforced errors, scrambling to a loose ball, tightening up and pushing in if you're an A defender, not being lazy at second marker. I mean, these are all things that for a team that's down in the bowels of the comp and down the wrong end of the table, they don't get magnified, because it's almost like, oh, well, we're not as good as the Warriors. Maybe acknowledge that the Warriors are a better team than you right now, but there's things you can do in your own control. But I would like to see the Dragons kind of do a bit of their homework and spot a few things and try to slow down what the Warriors are trying to do. And the Warriors, to me, remind me of, I used to call the Melbourne Storm with the big three, a big python or a boa constrictor that would just tighten and tighten and tighten, where the kind of the Warriors are kind of trying to achieve that, but also have that same a finesse that the Storm didn't have. So the Dragons, I think, just need to acknowledge it and say, look, we are coming up against a better team than us this weekend, but here's the things that we can do to stop it.